up, everybody? 2014 BMW X5 35i all-wheel drive. We're doing a transmission replacement. It's over there. Another shop diagnosed it. They said he needs a new transmission. The guy didn't believe them, brought it to us. I re-diagnosed it. He needs a new transmission. We gave him the options of doing a rebuild or just buying an entirely new unit, because rebuilding Beamer Transes can be a bit of a mess. So he opted for the new transmission install, and that is what we are going to be doing today. So let's get right into this. Book time calls for about 9 hours. We're gonna try to do it in less. These really aren't that hard. They're relatively easy. So let's get right into this video. Okay, before we begin tearing into this Beamer, let's go over the tools we're gonna need. So starting with your E-sockets and hex sockets. E-sockets, you're gonna need an E10, an E12, and an E14. Your hex sockets, you're gonna need an H5, an H10, and an H8. Moving on to the actual 3/8 sockets, you're gonna need some 10s. I use a deep, a shallow, wobble, deep wobble. You'll need an 8mm for some of the body stuff. You'll need a 13mm. You can either use a wobble or just a normal socket. Moving on to 1/2 inch, you're gonna need a 14mm, and you're gonna need an 18mm. And where is we're missing? Oh, and then you're gonna need a 17mm. And this should be all you really need. All right, getting right into this, the first thing we're gonna do is, once we have the vehicle turned off and in a park, we're gonna chalk the wheels or just get your vehicle secured. We're gonna come to the back, and then we gotta disconnect the battery. All right, to remove the battery, you gotta get into the back of the vehicle, which is the rear trunk, and then we gotta remove this cover where the battery's gonna be directly underneath it. So you have 8mm bolts, you got 1 and 2 and 3 right there. Get these 8mm nuts off, and this comes out, and we get access to the battery. All right, battery's exposed. Now we're not gonna remove it, we're just gonna disconnect one of these lines. I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect both of these, the negative and the positive. So this is gonna be a 10 mil, just get both of them off the battery, and then we'll move back up to continuing everything else. From here, once we got the battery disconnected, we're now gonna get underneath the vehicle. There shouldn't be anything we have to do up top. So let's go and get the vehicle raised and get underneath it. All right, now that we're underneath the vehicle, we're gonna remove all these undercovers. It's gonna be an 8mm, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have another one right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna be a 16mm. Get these off, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Got the undercovers off, 1, 2. We've got everything freed up now. Now we have room to work. So to start with, we're gonna go ahead and drain the transmission fluid. You're gonna need a hex bit, and it is going to be a 10, an H10. Just get it on here, get all the transmission fluid out. Drain all the fluid, let's get it all out. We're gonna put it back on, and then move on to the next thing. Okay, now that we've gotten the transmission fluid drained, now we're gonna work on getting the drive shaft out and pretty much getting everything from the back of the transmission out first and disconnected. So to get to the drive shaft, it's gonna be in here, as you can see. It's gonna be in this heat shield, but we gotta get the heat shield off to get to the drive shaft. So to get the heat shield off, we need some maneuvering. I'm gonna do this without having to remove the entire exhaust system, like on a lot of Beamers with this transmission. So work around that. We're just gonna maneuver the heat shield out the way. You're gonna be a bunch of these little 10 lightweight nuts. You're just gonna go along the entire length of it. You've got some 10s that hold this heat shield in place, as well as you have some little 8mm along the way. Just get all of them off that connect the heat shield. Once you get them all off and you free it up, just get it off, and then you've got a little panel right here. It's gonna be an 8mm. Get this off as well. Pretty much all of them that would conceal the drive shaft in this area. So let me go ahead and work and get all these disconnected and get the drive shaft exposed. All right, so like I said, we're not gonna fully remove all this crap. We're just gonna get it out the way so we can disconnect the drive shaft. We have got 3 18mm nuts. We're gonna go ahead and disconnect the little drive shaft rubber mounting on that goes on the transmission. You got 1, 2, 3. They're gonna be 18mm. I use a wobble socket. Just get it on there, zap it off, zap it off, zap it off. Then we'll move on to the next thing. Just gonna show you guys how I get them off. I get my 1/2-inch ratchet, put my wall socket on it, I zap it out. Although this is on the wrong freaking nut, it's gonna be on the one over there. Let's adjust it. Oh, I didn't even see that. So you get it on there. Boom, just like that. Okay. So now that we have this out the way, we're gonna move on to the next thing, which is we're gonna get the torque converter bolts out while we're here. So you have a little plug right here, and this one already had it removed, but you got a plug right here, a little cover right here, a cover right here. It's gonna be these two. Just pull them off, get them out the way, and the torque converter bolts are gonna be in here. It's gonna be a 17 millimeter. I'm gonna use a wobble socket. I'm gonna stick it in there, use my impact, and just impact these out. But the way I turn these is, if I'm not reusing the torque converter, which if your transmission is coming out, replace the damn torque converter, don't try to save it. The way I do it is I stick a pry bar in here and I just pry against it, against the converter, and it turns the flywheel. It doesn't damage it. I've done plenty of these like this. It's a lot easier than tearing apart all that junk just to get to the crank bolt. And as a heavy line tech, it's all about speed, consistency, and doing the job right. So get a little pry bar, pry against it like this, and it turns the crank so that you can get to the access to each of these torque converter bolts. So let's go ahead and start removing all of them. I've got the first one out, so let me show you guys how I do this. So I get a pry bar, and I just pry, and it turns the crank just like this. Although I use both hands to get it in there, but you're just gonna pry against it, and it'll turn the torque converter and the flywheel. You're supposed to each of the torque converter bolts. Let's go and get them out. Okay, so once you've got the 6 torque converter bolts out, now we're gonna move on to the next part, which is supporting the transmission. Either use a jack stand, or if you have a transmission check and you're doing it in the air like I am, go ahead and get it supported. Okay, transmission supported. I've got it supported just like so. Now we gotta remove this entire rear mount assembly. So to get this out, you're gonna need a 16 millimeter and an 18 millimeter. 16s are gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 18 is gonna be this really long bolt. And then depending on, this should connect all the way over here. So we're just gonna zap this out. And once we get the other ones out, we should be able to just remove this entire mount itself. Now make sure you get the transmission jacked up. So let me go ahead and work this out, get this removed. As you can see, we've gotten all the surrounding bolts that bolted into the frame. Now we've got to loosen it up. So now we just got to remove this, and then we'll work this entire metal black mounting bracket piece, support, whatever the hell they call it, off the vehicle. Okay, the entire mounting, got it out. It's right there. We got our bolts right there. Now, while we are back here, we're gonna go ahead and remove the connectors, and this ground right here is gonna be a 13 millimeter. Just zap it off, let the ground hang. We got a connector right here. It's gonna be a little push tab. There we go. Just push this down, pulls out just like this. Then we'll go ahead and get the main transmission connector. This is you're just gonna push it up. And as you push up, it'll start to come out. We'll need some maneuvering to get it out, but once you get this out, just like that, we've got that freed up. Now we're done from this part. I'm gonna go ahead and zap this ground off, and then we're gonna move on to the intermediate drive shaft. Okay, we're done up back from here, and now we're gonna move on to the intermediate drive shaft. We gotta get 4 of these bolts out. You got 1, 2, 3, and then 4 up there. To get these out, you're gonna need an E12 socket. Just get this. The way I do them is I use an extension with a little wobble and the socket itself, and I just zap those 4 bolts out. Okay, I've gone ahead and done the 4 bolts out. Now, before I fully remove this, I'm going to index with a Sharpie which ones go where, just like we did on that main drive shaft. Just put a Sharpie mark so that you remember whenever you reassemble it again. Gonna set the Sharpie aside. Now I'm gonna grab a soft ended mallet and just, don't even need it. Okay, so we got this. Now, what you're gonna do is you're gonna maneuver this out the way, just like upwards. And I'm gonna need both hands, but you're gonna pull it and it will detach. It'll kind of pop out as a whole. So you can use a pry bar and kind of stick it and just pry that way, but it will come out. Just get it out, kind of maneuver it this way, just like so, and get this removed. And just like this, you can see it pops right out. I didn't even need a pry bar, I just pulled it with my hands. So now let's get this out the way. Okay, next thing up, we have a 13 millimeter right here. We're holding these 2 lines in. We're gonna zap this off, then we're gonna disconnect it from the transmission, which is gonna be right there. And this, the way you're gonna free it up, let me zoom in, is it's like a little, it clips in, so you're gonna use like a little screwdriver wrench to get this popped up. Once you get this popped up, the line will be free, and then we'll be able to pull this out. You're gonna wanna stick a pan underneath because some trans fluid is probably gonna leak out once you get this off and free from the transmission. While we're right here, we're gonna also disconnect all these lines. They just clip into these little metal things, and you've got to clip up here and get this freed off the trans, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, we have freed up pretty much all of this and this line. Now let's go on the other side. And we gotta disconnect the exhaust system, specifically this bracket, this off of it, so that when we pull the transmission out, this isn't getting caught up on it. So these are gonna be 13mm bolts. Main ones we're gonna focus on is this one, this one, this one down here, and then we got to get these off. You can just remove get the little hanger off, but I'm just gonna remove the entire bracket. So we got another one right here and another one right here. Let's go ahead and zap these off. Go ahead and zap all these off. So as you can see, the bracket is off. The exhaust manifold, you can see it's no longer connected to the transmission itself. We are fully free off of it now. Now that we're at this step, we are getting pretty close to being almost done with this. We're reaching a halfway point in this replacement. So now we're gonna work on going back over the transmission body itself. We gotta make sure all of our wiring and everything else is removed and off the transmission, so that when we remove it, nothing's getting caught up. So we're gonna go along. You have this main sensor right here, our connector that went into the back, into this computer. So if you follow it along, you've got those little metal clips again. You're just gonna pull it off, get it freed off, go along, keep going along, as well as following along with this main TCM connector. You're gonna reach your hand up here, get everything disconnected, follow up along up there, double checking, move on to the other side. We have pretty much already done it. So now, really the last one we gotta worry about is this one up here. Now this one is gonna come off when we get the bell housing bolt out, but you can just go ahead and pull this off. I'm gonna leave it connected to the bracket right here because it's gonna be freed up when I get the bell housing bolt out. So let me go ahead, reach my hand up here, get everything disconnected, and then we'll move on to the bell housing bolts. Okay, now we're on one of the last final steps of getting it out. Now we gotta get the bell housing bolts out. So we have 11 bolts total that we're gonna have to get out. They are 2 different sizes. I think it's stupid, but I'm not a BMW engineer. So for the smaller ones, you're gonna need an E10. It's gonna be these lower ones, the ones on the bottom. I can get a light, goddamn. Okay. So you can see the lower ones are a different size. Those are going to be E10, and then the others are all going to be E14s, and they go all the way around. You have really the upper 4 on the very top are going to be a little bit hard to reach. You have 2 in the very dead center pretty much of the transmission at the very top. You're going to need a really long extension, and then you have the other upper 2 that you can kind of barely see peeking through up there, and then the 4th one is going to be way up here, and then you have the 2 in the center. But let's get all these 11 bolts out. And the way we're gonna get to them is you need a really long extension with an E12 socket, and you're gonna need some sort of wobbly end. I've got a wobble extension that allows my socket to wobble on its end like this. But you're gonna feed it through here, up through the top, get your socket all the way through, get it through the end, and then once you have it through the end, you can either use a ratchet and break it, or do like me, I'm just gonna impact it out. And I'm gonna do it, move it over a couple inches to the right, get the one on the right out, that's all the way up there. And then from there, we pretty much have the transmission out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the 2 out, and then I'll show you guys how to properly detach the transmission and carefully lower it down. Okay, before we remove the last 2 bell housing bolts, we wanna make sure that you have your transmission fully supported. I have a ratchet strap tied around the body of the transmission onto my stand right here, so that as soon as I get those last 2 bell housing bolts out, depending on the age of your transmission, it may just pop off, and you don't want it to pop off and slip and fall, and then you break something. So go ahead and get it strapped down, and let's work on getting those last 2 let's work on getting those last 2 bell housing bolts out. Okay, transmission is out. Now I did make a bit of a mess, as this one wanted to be annoying. The torque converter separated, and I had to do some maneuvering to get it out, but I had to get it out far enough, and then I had to stick a pry bar in between the torque converter because the little spindle got stuck in here. It didn't want to come out whenever I moved the transmission out. So once you get those last bolts out, the transmission is relatively easy to get out. If you need to, just try to stick a pry bar in between the lips here and to separate it, but it separates pretty easy. You're just gonna scoot it back just a little bit, and then it just drops straight down. You wanna take mind of the drive shaft, make sure it doesn't get caught up. Just maneuver it out the way as you lower the transmission down. So now, let's go to the transmission. There's the transmission, and what I was talking about, the torque converter, the little lip in here, this guy, he got stuck in the flywheel, and I had this separated, a bunch of fluid leaked out, but we're all good. We got it out. Now that the transmission's out, the new transmission did not come with a transfer case or transfer assembly, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So we got to get the transfer case disassembled, or at least removed off the transmission. And I'm going to go over to the other transmission, the brand new one we got, and kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. But a lot of times whenever you buy a BMW trans, it does not come with this assembly unless you specifically ask them to buy it. But factory shipped ones come with just the unit itself without this guy. This is easy. You can do it two ways. If you do it my way, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get this out with the transmission out if you're already replacing the transmission. It's simple to get the transfer case off. You get a bolt here, you get a bolt here, and you got some down here. You just follow along. Once you get the bolts off, right here, this just separates itself. You get the bolts off, and then you pull it outwards, and it comes off, and then we're going to transfer it over to the other one. But let me go over to the other transmission and kind of show you guys. Okay, let's see. New transmission, fresh out the box. It's like getting Christmas presents. We got it open. Woo-wee! Look at that. It's clean transmission. Woo! Smells amazing. Oh yeah. All right. So as you can see, the new factory transmission does not come with that transfer. So I'm gonna get this transmission out. We're gonna get it over into the build room. We're gonna transfer the other one off the old transmission onto this guy, and we're gonna get this guy prepared to get put back in Mr. BMW. So let me get it moved over there, and let's get everything transferred over. All right, now before we get the other transmission loaded up and brought into this room, we're gonna go ahead and remove the transfer case. To get this transfer case off, you got E14 socket, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, coming down, 6, and where is that other one? No, I don't look like we got another one. So just get those 6 off, and then you're gonna carefully, you don't want it to drop because we are saving this, but we're choking that. We're gonna get all the bolts off, and then we're gonna carefully pull it back and set it on the bench or set it wherever the hell you got it. If you're doing it in the grass or the AutoZone parking lot, put it in the AutoZone parking lot, but just don't drop it. Transfer case came off just like that. There's the bolts. We've got it set down. Now, while it's out and before we install it onto the other transmission, we want to check our seals. So make sure this is in good shape still. Make sure the seal in here is in good shape. Make sure it ain't leaking. We're gonna flip it around. Taking caution of the little computer that is right here. We're gonna double check everything. We're also gonna check this, make sure this is in good shape. Kind of spin it around a bit. This looks good. So now we're gonna set this back down gently. We're gonna go grab the other transmission. We're gonna get this, send it off to whoever the hell wants to buy it. We're gonna get rid of this. We're gonna load the new transmission onto the same jack and get it moved over here, get this bolted onto the new transmission. All right, last final checks before we begin the install. The second part of this video, we wanna make sure we have everything we need. So a lot of times when you do these, you wanna make sure that if you're replacing the components that need to be replaced, we've got new dowel pins, and we've got all new torque converter bolts, not torque converter bolts, bell housing bolts. We've got 11 new ones, and the torque converter bolts are gonna be in the other room, but we're putting a whole fresh new set of bolts onto this thing. We've gotten the transfer case in, we tightened up all the bolts, we're double checked all of our seals, everything's good to go on this end. And now last thing is we're gonna double check torque converter is fully seated in before we install it. The easiest way to check is you're gonna kind of see if you can fit your fingers back here. There should not be much space. And then another way is you're just gonna spin it, make sure it's smooth, make sure it doesn't feel like it's loose. You're gonna press against it, grab the little spindle, push and spin, and just keep doing it. And it shouldn't feel like there is space between the back of the torque converter and the edge of the transmission, the little shaft that sticks out, input shaft. So this one is fully seated in. You're gonna have a little bit of play like this, but this is normal because it's not bolted into the flywheel. But we are good to go from here. There's very little, doesn't feel like it's gotten jostled loose. Okay, we are under the truck, not the truck. Okay, we are under the vehicle now. Final thing, before we install it. Last final checks again. We're gonna look at the drive shaft, make sure we're all good, make sure this doesn't need to be replaced. I mean the mount itself, look at the condition of it before you put it back on. As well as looking at cooler lines. I usually replace these little O-rings. If you didn't buy them, literally get you a kit from AutoZone and just replace these trans cooler or trans lines O-rings. It's always good to do it. And we're gonna look at the flex plate, make sure everything's good, make sure the condition of it, look at the mating surface, make sure we're all good, make sure there's nothing out of spec. While you're at it, you can also check the condition of your rear main seal. This one isn't leaking, so we don't need to worry about this. But if you do have a leaking rear main, the transmission's already out. You might as well do it. It's literally removing the flex plate, popping this off, removing the cover, getting that off, and putting a new rear main in. Everything else though from here is pretty much simple. You're gonna raise it back up. You're gonna get this as level as you can. At the same time, taking caution of your torque converter, making sure that it's not tipping too much forward because you do not want this to get misaligned. Another tip is as you're getting it raised up in the air, you want to try to line up these with the flex plate. So the way I always do it is the access hole right here that we use to take out the torque converter bolts is straight down. So we know that one of the bolts is going to go straight down and it's aligned like this. So we can do the same thing with the transmission. We'll line it up like this. It's straight down so that when we get it up and into the transmission, it will already be lined up. And if it's not, and if it kind of scoots over a little bit, we can always just kind of stick our finger in here and line it back up. If you forget to do that, you can literally just stick your finger in here into the access hole and just turn it by itself without it bolted in. It's relatively easy to turn by hand, but this does just make it easier. And before you get it in, one last thing is kind of put some lubrication oil on this. It can help. Do it, don't. It's your transmission. So I'm gonna go and start the installation process and get it back in the vehicle. Okay, we are on the last and final step. I've gotten the transmission and everything installed back into the vehicle. Now we're on our final steps, which is putting fluid in it and programming it. So once you get everything torqued down and you've double checked everything is secure, and you make sure you got all your bolts in, you got all your covers, all your wires are assembled, your drive shafts and the intermediate shaft is torqued down. Once you have this all good to go, now we gotta fill it. So to fill it, to do the initial fill, this takes about like 7 to 8 quarts, but I don't go based off all that. I just base it off of the check plug or the check hole. So you're gonna fill it through here. Just make sure this is tight. You're gonna fill it through here. This bolt for this fill hole is going to be an H8, and you're just gonna put your hex socket in there and crank this loose, get it off, and start pumping in. We're gonna start by pumping in an additional, there's all our fluid. We're gonna start by pumping in an additional 5 to 6 quarts. Once we get 5 to 6 quarts in here, I'm gonna go up there, start the vehicle, and let it get up to temperature. So let me put in 5 quarts, and then we'll move on to how we're gonna get this fluid properly done. But before we start it, we got to get in here and reconnect our battery. So I'm gonna have to go inside and crawl inside because I shut the damn back door. I'm gonna crawl in here, reconnect the battery, and go back up into the driver's seat and turn the vehicle on. God damn, I'm an idiot. I should not have shut the damn door. All right, let me pop this open and reconnect the battery that's under here. Okay, goddamn. I love it. We got the trunk open with the battery disconnected. I had to do some maneuvering because my big old self can barely reach over this and fit my arm down here, so I had to maneuver and set that ground onto the battery so that we could get the back door open. Don't do what I did. Leave the damn door open, or else you're gonna have to crawl back here and do what I did. So let's reconnect the battery. We'll go up front and start the vehicle. Okay, so starting out, once we are in the vehicle and we got it powered back on, we got to program the transmission. If you rebuilt your transmission and you're putting in the same unit, you don't really need to worry about the programming. You can just do a relearn. And to do a relearn, you're going to need a scanner that is capable of accessing each of the modules. I've got my X tool. This is my daily one, but you're going to find the automatic transmission module on these Beamers, and especially Mercedes. They got a crap ton of modules. So we're going to find the main automatic transmission one. Central gateway, telematics. Okay, come on now. Let me go back. Go system selection, drive, electronic transmission system. Come on now. Communication, nope, we've got to program it. Okay, so essentially what you're doing is I got to program this, and I have to grab the other scanner and hook it up to the online system to my computer, because we got to get the brand new transmission programmed before I can even access the module. But if you're putting in your rebuilt transmission and using the same computer, you're going to go into the electronic transmission control system. You're going to go to special function, and so say this is it. Let me see one that has a special function. Okay, well, goddamn, these new BMWs, you need the expensive software to access them. But you're going to go into, say, this is the transmission module. There's going to be a special functions option. We'll pretend this is it. You'll click onto it, and it'll give you options to do like transmission relearn, relearn adaptive values, reset adaptive values. You're going to find which one it is, reset the adaptive values, or complete a relearn. You'll walk it through the steps, and then you should be good to go to start the vehicle. Once you have it started, we'll go through all the steps, but I'm going to go ahead and program this transmission, and then we'll go on to the final checks and fluid checks before we do our final test drive and ship this vehicle.